Hello and welcome to another episode of The Successful Non-Technical Founder. My name is Ben and today I'll be your host. We are going to continue talking about hiring developers, and today we're talking about mindset and biases. So, it is rare to find a developer who both is good at development and understands the business applications of that development. I don't know why. Maybe because there aren't many joint CS and business degrees in the country. Maybe it's just a difference in the way their brain works versus the business side of the company. But when you're looking for a technology leader, someone to lead your team, you have to find someone who has that magic crossover between the business goals and the technical realities, because what they're going to be making decisions that will affect your company for years. The frameworks and packages that they choose, the code that they build, if it works well and is successful, it's going to be a part of your company for the foreseeable future. And so you want to make sure that those decisions are being made right. One, so that the project can be successful, but two, so that you can deal with it over the years. So are the people in your candidate pool, particularly for tech, your tech lead, are they looking at technology through business eyes? That's a good question, and that's the question that we're going to talk a little bit about today in the way of biases and mindset. What are some things to watch out for? What are some mindsets and some biases the developers have to watch out for when you're choosing your technical lead? That is what we're going to focus on now. So, first, adopting technologies too early for business. Developers have a proclivity to focus on the new and shiny thing. It's probably because that's part of who they are. They want to be on the cusp of technology. They want to be on the edge of what we can do. That's great, but not great for business. For instance, there's some new languages and frameworks out there, one of which is Svelte, another is Golang. These are great languages. Developers are very excited about these. But is it the time to be building projects in them for businesses? The answer depends. Is your business on the cutting edge of technology? Probably not, because you're a non-technical founder, but it could be. Maybe you're wanting to work into that. But for the vast majority of non-technical leaders, you're not going to want to be on that cutting edge, because even the stuff that's very common for developers, that is common throughout the industry for developers, is probably cutting edge for your industry. And so you have to keep that in mind and watch out for a tech lead that pushes the newest and shiniest thing, because Golang is a great language to build in, but everything is going to be more expensive in that language, because you're going to have to build more of it from scratch. You're going to have to patch holes in the language, possibly on your own, and contribute to the open source project. So it's just going to be more costly than I think most non-technical leaders understand. Next bias I want to talk about: remodeling versus rebuilding. Watch out for developers whose instant reaction to everything new is, it needs to be rebuilt the way I would build it. This is a very common bias for developers, because they say, oh, well, if I already have code that I've written related to XYZ feature, but I can't use it because we're working in a language that I've never written in, or that it was written by a developer who maybe isn't as smart as I am, or many other reasons they come up with to say, oh, if we just rewrote this, if I just rewrote this from scratch, then it would be much better for the company. 90% of the time, that mindset is wrong. There are multiple reasons for that, but 90% of the time, that mindset is wrong. And I don't have time to go into it in this video. Maybe I should make a whole, let me know in the comments below if I should make a whole video about that. But this leads into the next bias, which is underestimating. Developers often underestimate the amount of effort it takes to do something, particularly rebuilding. And you need to watch out for this, particularly with your lead developer. Now, every developer has a tendency to estimate in a similar way. So if you find the developer is underestimating, you can come up with a calculation. You can take what they estimate and what they actually deliver, and then you can come up with a calculation to use for future tasks that developer does. But in general, you want to avoid a developer who underestimates everything, particularly for your lead developer, because that often means that they lack experience, but it can get you into trouble when it comes to budgets. That said, estimates are always wrong, and I wrote a whole article about that on the blog, but you want estimates to be close enough. You don't want them to be in a whole nother ballpark or a whole nother universe, galaxy. You want them to be, it's okay if they go over sometimes, but you want them to be in the ballpark. Next, watch out for developers who dismiss whole languages, particularly languages that are popular. One great example of this is PHP. A lot of developers hate PHP. It's one of the most popular scripting languages. Huge companies have been written with it. They've been able to scale it, and PHP's improved itself over the years, so a lot of the problems that developers think PHP has, it doesn't even have anymore. So watch out for developers who will dismiss whole languages like PHP or others. A good developer is excited to get experience in a lot of different languages. Now, there are some that I think are too old to work in day-to-day actively, but even those I'm open to maintaining and learning them in an effort to be able to maintain projects written in those languages. For instance, .NET, or I'm sad to say even Java. But by and large, watch out for people who dismiss whole languages. And also, the next bias is dismissing whole frameworks. WordPress is a great example of this. Some developers hate it. And so if a business partner comes to them and says, hey, we need a website, the developer says, oh, I could build that from scratch in 10 minutes. So the non-technical person doesn't know the difference between whether or not they could have used WordPress or whether or not building from scratch is a good idea. And so once the website's done, it seems like it works, and the business partner doesn't think anything of it. The problem is, as you go to maintain that code, something that was written by the developer themselves, they're the only person that knows how to maintain it. If you add features to it, it gets increasingly costly. When you could have, if you just need a simple website, you could have used WordPress, which is the most widely used content management system in the world, very familiar with marketing departments and agencies all over the world. That would have been a much better choice than building it from scratch, but the developer wanted to build their own framework rather than use something off the shelf. So watch out for developers that dismiss frameworks and languages too easily. Lastly, extreme positions on certain things. They're often in this industry, we adopt these kind of best practices. And some of them, for example, are mobile first development or design, mobile first design, or test driven development. Now, these are good rules of thumb. But you have to know the trade-offs for each project. And some developers, they hear this mantra, and then for them, if you ever do it different, it's wrong. Watch out for developers who have those extreme positions. There are good reasons to not design an application mobile first. Very good reasons. And there are good reasons not to test everything in an application. I've seen applications that they'll test whether the button is there on the page. Well, you can just look and see if the button's there. Now that said, if the button is a purchase button on a shopping cart, well then that's a very, very important button and we can't afford to have that broken. But do we really need to test every non-important button on the site? That's a lot of technical debt. That's a lot of testing overhead. And so you have to be aware of the trade-offs that your developers are making when it comes to extreme positions. So I could go on and on. Let me know if you would like me to do a whole post, a whole other article on just this topic. We could definitely do that. This episode is part of our whole series. And because you watched this episode, we have a free gift for you on our website. There's a link in the description below. It's called A Guide to Tech Projects for Non-Technical Leaders. And you can download that for free. If you ever need help on your technical project, whether it's you just need some advice or you need us to come in and set up processes for your team, or whether or not you need us to take over the whole project and get it to completion, please reach out at Bwink.com. We'd love to talk with you. And that is all I have for you today. So thank you for tuning in. This is Ben signing out.